Yes, yes, said the beast. My heart is good, but still I am a monster. Among mankind, Beauty said, there are many that deserve that name more than you, and I prefer you, just as you are, to those who, under a human form, hide a treacherous, corrupt, and ungrateful heart. If I had sense enough, replied the beast, I would make a fine compliment to thank you. But I am so dull that I can only say, I am greatly obliged to you. Beauty ate a hearty supper, and had almost conquered her dread of the monster, but she had liked to have fainted away when he said to her, Beauty, will you be my wife? It was some time before she dared answer, for she was afraid of making him angry if she refused. At last, however, she said, trembling, No, beast. Immediately the poor monster went to sigh, and hissed so frightfully that the whole palace echoed, but Beauty soon recovered her fright, for Beast having said, in a mournful voice, Then farewell, Beauty, he left the room, and only turned back now and then to look at her as he went out. When Beauty was alone, she felt a great deal of compassion for poor Beast. Beauty spent 3 months very contentedly in the palace. Every evening Beast paid her a visit and talked to her during supper very rationally, with plain good common sense, but never with what the world calls wit. And Beauty daily discovered some valuable qualifications in the monster, and seeing him often had so accustomed her to his deformity that far from dreading the time of his visit, she would often look on her watch to see when it would be 9, for the beast never missed coming at that hour. There was but one thing that gave Beauty any concern, which was that every night, before she went to bed, the monster always asked her if she would be his wife. One day she said to him, Beast, you make me very uneasy. I wish I could consent to marry you, but I am too sincere to make you believe that will ever happen. I shall always esteem you as a friend, endeavor to be satisfied with that, okay, Beast? I must, said the beast, for alas, I know too well my own misfortune, but then I love you with the tenderest affection. However, I ought to think myself happy that you will stay here. Promise me never to leave me. Beauty blushed at these words. She had seen in her glass that her father had pined himself sick for the loss of her, and she longed to see him again. I could, she answered, indeed, promise to never leave you entirely, but I have so great a desire to see my father that I shall fret to death if he refuse me that satisfaction. I'd rather die myself, said the monster, than give you the least uneasiness. I will send you to your father. You shall remain with him, and poor Beast will die with grief. No, said Beauty, weeping. I love you too well to be the cause of your death. I give you my promise to return in a week. You have shown me that my sisters are married and my brothers gone to the army. Only let me stay a week with my father, as he is alone. You shall be there tomorrow morning, said the beast, but remember your promise. You need only lay your ring on a table before you go to bed, when you have a mind to come back. Farewell, Beauty. Beast sighed, as usual, bidding her good night, and Beauty went to bed very sad at seeing him so afflicted. When she woke the next morning, she found herself at her father's, and having rung a little bell that was by her bedside, she saw the maid come, who, the moment she saw her, gave a loud shriek, at which the good man ran upstairs and thought he should have died with joy to see his dear daughter again. He held her fast, locked in his arms, above a quarter of an hour. As soon as the first transports were over, Beauty began to think of rising, and was afraid she had no clothes to put on. But the maid told her that she had just found in the next room a large trunk full of gowns, covered with gold and diamonds. Beauty thanked good Beast for his kind care, and taking one of the plainest of them, she intended to make a present of the others to her sisters. She scarce had said so when the trunk disappeared. Her father told her that Beast insisted on her keeping them herself, and immediately both gowns and trunk came back again. Beauty dressed herself, and in the meantime they sent to her sisters, who hastened thither with their husbands. They were both very unhappy. The eldest had married a gentleman, extremely handsome indeed, but so fond of his own person that he was full of nothing but his own dear self, and neglected his wife. The second had married a man of wit, but he only made use of it to plague and torment everybody, and his wife most of all. Beauty's sisters sickened with envy when they saw her dressed like a princess, and more beautiful than ever, nor could all her obliging, affectionate behavior stifle their jealousy, which was ready to burst when she told them how happy she was. They went down into the garden to vent in tears, and said one to the other, "In what way is this little creature better than us, that she should be so much happier?" "Sister," said the oldest, "a thought just strikes my mind. Let us endeavor to detain her above a week, and perhaps the silly monster will be so enraged at her for breaking her word that he will devour her." "Right, sister," answered the other. "Therefore we must show her as much kindness as possible." After they had taken this resolution, they went up and behaved so affectionately to their sister that poor Beauty wept for joy. When the week was expired, they cried and tore their hair, and seemed so sorry to part with her that they promised to stay a week longer. In the meantime, Beauty could not help reflecting on herself, for the uneasiness she was likely to cause poor Beast, who she sincerely loved and really longed to see again. The 10th night she spent at her father's, she dreamed she was in a palace garden, and that she saw a Beast extended on the grass plat, who seemed just expiring, and, in a dying voice, reproached her with her ingratitude. Beauty started out of her sleep, and bursting into tears, "Am I not very wicked," she said, "to act so unkindly to Beast, that has studied so much to please me in everything? Is it his fault if he is so ugly and has so little sense? He is kind and good, and that is sufficient. Why did I refuse to marry him? I should be happier with the monster than my sisters are with their husbands. It is neither wit nor a fine person in a husband that makes a woman happy, but virtue, sweetness of temper, and compliance, and Beast has all these valuable qualifications. It is true, I do not feel the tenderness of affection for him, but I find I have the highest gratitude, esteem, and friendship. I will not make him miserable. Were I to be so ungrateful, I should never forgive myself." Beauty, having said this, rose, put her ring on the table, and then laid down again. Scarce was she in bed before she fell asleep, and when she woke the next morning, she was overjoyed to find herself in the Beast's palace. She put on one of her richest suits to please him, and waited for evening with the utmost impatience. At last the wished-for hour came. The clock struck 9. yet no beast appeared. Beauty then feared she had been the cause of his death. She ran crying and wringing her hands all about the palace, like one in despair. After having sought for him everywhere, she recollected her dream and flew to the canal in the garden, where she dreamed she saw him. There she found poor Beast stretched out, quite senseless and, as she imagined, dead. She threw herself upon him without any dread, and finding his heart beat still, she fetched some water from the canal and poured it on his head. Beast opened his eyes and said to Beauty, "You forgot your promise, and I was so afflicted for having lost you that I resolved to stay in this garden. But since I have the happiness of seeing you once more, I am now satisfied." "No, dear Beast," said Beauty, "you must not die. Live to be my husband. From this moment I give you my hand, and swear to be none but yours. Alas, I thought I had only a friendship for you, but the grief I now feel convinces me that I cannot live without you." Beauty scarce had pronounced these words when she saw the palace sparkle with light, and fireworks, instruments of music, everything seemed to give notice of some great event. But nothing could fix her attention. She turned to her dear Beast, for whom she trembled with fear. But how great was her surprise! Beast was no longer there, and she saw at her feet one of the loveliest princes that eyes have ever beheld, who returned her thanks for having put an end to the charm, under which he had so long resembled a beast. Though the prince was worthy of all her attention, she could not forbear asking where Beast was. "You see him at your feet," said the prince. "A wicked fairy had condemned me to remain under that shape until a beautiful young maiden should consent to marry me. The fairy likewise enjoined me to conceal my understanding. There was only you in the world generous enough to be won by the goodness of my temper. And in offering you my crown, I can't discharge the obligations I have to you." Beauty, agreeably surprised, gave the charming prince her hand to rise. They went together into the castle, and Beauty was overjoyed to find in the great hall her father and the whole family, whom the beautiful lady that appeared in her dream had conveyed there as well. "Beauty," said the lady, "come and receive the reward of your judicious choice. You have preferred virtue before either wit or beauty, and deserve to find a person in whom all these qualifications are united. You are going to be a great queen. I hope the throne will not lessen your virtue or make you forget yourself. As to you, ladies," said the fairy to Beauty's two sisters, "I know your hearts, and all the malice they contain. Become two statues, but, under this transformation, still retain your reason. You shall stand before your sister's palace gate, and be it your punishment to behold her happiness, and it will not be in your power to return to your former state until you own your faults. But I am very much afraid that you will always remain statues. Pride, anger, gluttony, and idleness are sometimes conquered, but the conversation of a malicious and envious mind is a kind of miracle." Immediately the fairy gave a stroke with her wand, and in a moment all that were in the hall were transported into their prince's dominions. His subjects received him with joy. He married Beauty, and lived with her many years, and their happiness, as it was founded on virtue, was complete. fee